What is up YouTube, my name is Happiness and welcome to my channel. So we're gonna react to people's reaction to the Gulf of Mexico, to the Gulf of America. So as you heard in recent news, the president of Mexico is suing Google for the rename of the Gulf of Mexico to the Gulf of America. And all of a sudden, Trump decides to recognize the Gulf of America. Sorry about that. The Persian Gulf to the Gulf of Arabian Gulf to the Arabian Gulf. Yes, just because he wants them to sign a nuclear deal. Like this. The way these people think nowadays, I don't understand how do they operate. But despite that, let's check out what people have to say about. Also, there was a bill that was passed, whereby eventually the Gulf of a bill was passed whereby the Gulf of Mexico, whereby the Gulf of America should stay the Gulf of America. Imagine that. That type of stuff that people will go in order to preserve for the future, for the kids. Yes. So let's check out these couple of videos so that we can see what people have to say about the name change. Yeah. Let's check them out, guys.
Live from Washington, D.C., Saturday Night Live. You can't make this up. Mr. Speaker, I rise in perplexion. I first want to say how much respect I have for Mr. Westerman. He is my dear friend and one of our best members. My. Doing a lot of work this time, Bruce. Is this infantile bill to rename the Gulf of Mexico really this House's top priority? I heard the gentlelady say it's going to solve all the problems, of course, if we name it the Gulf of America. Golly day, why didn't we think of that? The economy is shrinking for the first time since COVID-19. Costs are going up. I think Saturday Night Live just called me. They want me on. Costs are going up. Small businesses are going under. American families are worried they won't be able to keep the lights on, keep food on the table, and keep the roof on their head. They're happy about, of course, Gulf of America. That'll do it. Millions of Americans risk losing their health insurance if Republicans' Medicaid cuts go through. Yet Republicans think this juvenile legislation is the best use of this House's time. This is the only thing we're doing today, folks. What a sick joke this is. Republicans worry about 400-year-old words on a map. I worry about families in every community in America who's struggling to get by. This bill is obviously a distraction, a joke. Where is Trump's one big, beautiful bill that we keep hearing so much about? The one that cuts taxes for the wealthiest among us, threatens health care for millions, and pulls the rug out from under working Americans. The majority still hasn't been able to put it on the floor. That's how divided, dysfunctional, and divisive they are. My dear friend, the late Elijah Cummings, with whom some of you served, said, "We're better than this." The American people are counting on us to be better than this. We ought to be debating legislation to bring down costs, to pay our debts, to fix our broken immigration system. Instead, MAGA Republicans waste our time with this childish drivel. Not only that, they give it a prime spot on the floor schedule. This is the only thing we're doing. for America today, renaming the Gulf of Mexico. May I have one more minute?
I yield the gentleman a minute.
Renaming the Gulf of Mexico, as if that's going to solve the problems. Very frankly, my self-confidence in America does not need that. I don't need Canada to be the 51st state. I don't need to invade Greenland, and I don't need the Gulf of America to have confidence in the greatest country on earth. Are we so small? Do we feel so belittled by the rest of the world that we have to do this silly, silly, silly step? We are made smaller, hear me, we are made smaller by this effort. Vote rationally. That'll be a no.
On this vote, the yeas are 211, the nays are 206. The bill is passed. Without objection, a motion to reconsider is laid on the table.
On Capitol Hill, the House has just passed a bill to officially rename the Gulf of Mexico the Gulf of America. The bill would require federal agencies to update all maps and documents with the new name, but it faces an uphill battle in the Senate. ABC's Jay O'Brien's on Capitol Hill with that. Jay, President Trump already enacted this change by executive order, so why does Congress need to take this step?
So this adds more teeth to that executive order and codifies, is the phrase, that executive order, and makes it required by law that maps and other things demonstrate that in the wording of this legislation, the Gulf of Mexico be renamed to the Gulf of America. It passed the House with almost all Republicans voting for it, Democrats, of course, voting against it. There was one moderate Republican who has been critical of his party in recent weeks and months, Don Bacon of Nebraska, who did vote no on this, but he was the only one. And this was legislation, remember, Diane, that was put forward, that was authored by Marjorie Taylor Greene, staunch Trump ally in the House, who's now eyeing, she told me and other reporters yesterday, a possible run for Senate or the governor's mansion in her home state of Georgia. Both of those seats will be open in the midterms in 2026. But you also mentioned that this is going to have a rocky road in the Senate because you need 60 votes to pass anything in the Senate, including this piece of legislation, which means a handful of Democrats would have to join Republicans in voting for this. And we're not tracking any Senate Democrats who are likely to get behind this legislation. So this doesn't look like it's on track to become law.
All right, Jay O'Brien on Capitol Hill. Thank you.
She ain't playing around. President Claudia Sheinbaum just served Google a legal notice because they decided to change Gulf of Mexico to Gulf of America for U.S. users. She was like, excuse me? That decree only covers the U.S. continental shelf. The rest belongs to Mexico and Cuba. That lady wasn't bluffing. The official lawsuit has been filed. She said you cannot change the name across the board. Why? Because the Gulf isn't just U.S. territory. Mexico controls 49%, Cuba 5%, so that gives the U.S. only 46%. I mean, she even joked around saying, should we start calling the U.S. Mexican America? Moral of the story, don't mess around with names that have been around since 1607. She ain't playing with you.
The House of Representatives seems to have been hard at work and totally not wasting time because they just passed a bill that, if it were to make it all the way through the Senate as well and up to Donald Trump's desk, it would make the executive order where the Gulf of Mexico was changed to the Gulf of America official law. And this is honestly a massive freaking waste of time. That particular body of water, the Gulf of Mexico, is not internationally recognized as the Gulf of America because guess what? The United States is not the only entity bordering that particular body of water, so the United States doesn't actually have the authority to unilaterally change the name. I mean, sure, they can say, as the USA, we only recognize it by this name, but you'll still get other nations recognizing it by Gulf of Mexico, as it has been recognized for hundreds of years at this point. In case you forgot, this whole Gulf of Mexico v. Gulf of America thing is the reason that the Associated Press was essentially kicked out of places like the Oval Office, but that's a point for another day. Honestly, this story in this bill is a waste of time, in my opinion. This is not something that the House should have been wasting time and taxpayer money debating, because this is already an executive order. However, they were very unambiguous, at least if you go read this article, about one of the goals being that they want to push this through and make this law so that it's not easy for anyone who comes after the tangerine tyrant to change. And that is a little bit concerning to hear. Now, let's pause for a second, because I do believe that this is kind of one of those distraction stories that they want us to talk about so that we don't think about the other stuff going on. But if this does get passed all the way through Senate and become law, this is going to set a precedent that they can quickly push through any of the executive orders that they want to become law. So Donald Trump would effectively be able to put his pen to whatever nonsense he wants from an executive order and then signal to his cronies in Congress to push through whatever he signed to then become law. And this should be concerning, because this is a potential pathway to circumvent the way the checks and balances are supposed to work in this country.
Hello, Governor Tim Walz. I want to talk about an issue of utmost importance to Minnesotans. Why aren't you renaming the Mississippi River the Minnesota River? I mean, the headwaters are in Minnesota. The longest shoreline is in Minnesota. It is vital to the economy of Minnesota. Last year, when Minnesota was flooded by the Mississippi, who stepped in? The Minnesota National Guard. And who paid for it? The taxpayers of Minnesota. Not one other state that borders the Mississippi contributed to the cleanup in Minnesota. It is your river, and the country should respect your unilateral decision to rename it. Granted, it will waste the time of the Minnesota legislature, which I'm sure has better things to do. And it will cost the state a lot of money to redo the maps. But it would be worth it to show the country that Minnesota is big and powerful enough to do something of absolutely no significance to the people of Minnesota and the world at large. Not to mention the fact that if the AP or other media refuse to call it the Minnesota River, you can ban them from entering the state, which will make you feel superior. And that is way more important than having facts about your state reported truthfully. Are the people of Minnesota truly that secure that they don't need to do something so ridiculous and meaningless? Don't you want to own the other 9 states with borders on the river? After all, that's clearly more important than, say, doing something to help the people of Minnesota. So how about it, Governor? Hasn't that big river had the wrong name for long enough? The people of Minnesota deserve better. Bye, Tim. Have a nice day.
MTG has done it again. She's introduced and passed a bill in the House that renames the Gulf of Mexico to the Gulf of America. News. No one in the world is going to call it the Gulf of America. It is the Gulf of Mexico, and has been for hundreds of years. Way to waste our taxpayer dollars, GOP, that passed this ludicrous, ridiculous...
What's going on, everybody? Sitting here with my buddy Ant. We're hanging out at the beach. We are at the Gulf of America in the state of freedom, Florida. This is the kind of state that you want to live in. A state where not only is there freedom, but they lock up people that are criminals, they get rid of people that are illegal, and it's just a great state. The taxes are good. They're working on trying to get rid of property taxes. This is where you want to be. This is where you want to be. Just look at this. It's absolutely beautiful. I mean, I love my state of Georgia, but it's real purple right now and the verge of turning blue, and it's just not what we're looking for. But look at this. Is this just not beautiful? After this, we're going to go to the Seat at the Table restaurant, the one that didn't close down during COVID, and was that big, huge thing going on about it. Looking forward to going and seeing those people. Looking forward to just spending a little bit more time down here in this beautiful state, hanging out with my buddy Ant. He's just sitting over there in the chair. Look at him, just hanging out. It's just a beautiful day, beautiful place, beautiful people. Golly, look at this. Isn't this not amazing? Gotta love freedom. Gotta love America. Love y'all. Have a good day.
Okay guys, thank you for watching my channel. Please like and subscribe, and let's meet up to the next video, and peace out.